All right. Already. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. So, my name is Joy Ndeni. I'm happy to have you here, Kayode and Christina. Already. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. So, we're going live. I have people joining already. So we have to do this right on the clock so that we can cover the necessary groups. So everyone joining, welcome to the page. So we're going to have a very interesting conversation this afternoon. And I know a lot of us joining here. This meeting actually speaks to you. I'm sure when you were registering, you were like, yes, I've been looking for a meeting that will address this, and here it is. Over the time as a career coach, having to talk to people, even just as a friend, you know, this is one of the things that we all have experienced in our lives. So we are still experiencing, or maybe you're even the boss. You feel like your subordinate or you are working for you, feel like you are, difficult, and you want to know what's going through their minds, So it could be on the other side of the coin, but here we are, and we're going to have to talk about that in this session, in this meeting. So, like I have two guests here with me, amazing people. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from them, and I would say that for a start. So I'm going to give you a heads up. This meeting is not going to help you abuse your boss or leader, so to say. It's not a meeting to rob your, it's not a gist session. I'm sure you have a lot of that with your friends and other people that you discuss with. This meeting is actually to give you practical ways to come up over that situation if eventually you're having that situation as a person right now, and to move on from there, to move forward from it. So that's what this meeting is about. If you're here on your watch live, please, you can respond on the chat section, the live chats. You can, if you've not documented your questions, you can ask questions here. You can give your feedback. You can comment. I really like that we have such an engaging audience, because we want to have it that way. At the same time, if you subscribe to this channel, it's going to have other content coming up in the future that will be of good use to you. So yeah, and you're free. It's an open meeting. You can share it with someone. Maybe the person didn't hear about this meeting at all, and you feel like, oh, what we're talking about is something they really need to hear. Please feel free to share with them as well. So thank you so much for coming to the call. I'm going to go straight on and invite the very first speaker in person of Kayode, and he would talk to us about what next year. It's about you. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. It's really great to be here. So do you want me to introduce myself now? Okay, awesome. All right. Yeah, so my name's Kayode Abbas. There are some people that may know me from LinkedIn. Have been putting out content on LinkedIn since 2018, 17. Can't really say for sure. So what do? I do a number of things, but at the moment I head the digital marketing department at an agency in Victoria Island called WSI Axon. We're a global franchise of marketing agencies across the globe. I manage the West African franchise. So I started my career as soon as I finished the university back in 2012. And I mean, I've had my share, my fair share of, dealing with having issues, with different managers. So I don't like to use, the term difficult bosses or bad bosses or bad managers, because I personally feel like there's nothing like a bad manager or a difficult boss or a bad boss. What I think is, I mean, if we are all human beings, at a point you are also going to grow in your career. You're going to sit at that top position, and of course, some people will also see you also as, being difficult or bad and all of that. But I just think that, sometimes the way we look at things also, the framework or the lens through which we see things, determines if something is bad or good to us. So I would just start first, with, narrating my own experience and how I think that anybody can deal with. So if you are dealing with, that kind of problem that, the person managing you think is very difficult or is, bad in quotes. So I started, as I said, in 2012, got my first job, and it was a fast-paced environment. So I've been blessed to, experience both structured and, unstructured, or should I say startup environments, work environments where there's really no much, it's not really structured. You're reporting directly to the owner of the business, so it's a lot different when you're working with those kind of managers or those type of bosses than when you're in a very structured environment where, there are processes, there's an hierarchy, so basically the person you're reporting to is just a line manager instead of, the owner. So I've worked in the two different scenarios. I've worked in companies where I was reporting directly to the owner, and others where, there's a structure, and then had a line manager, right? So in both cases, especially in my sector, as a digital marketer, as a, tech marketer, I've worked with a number of startups. So, I've experienced both sides, as I said. So there are some principles that, I've seen, and some things that, have happened time and time again, but there's basically 6 principles that I think can help anyone, that's going through such a situation where they have to deal with, a difficult manager, or working under someone that they feel like is very difficult to work with. So I remember my first job. It was a media business, one of these online media platforms. And, I was fresh out of school, just got the job, so there was so much excitement. And I was also at that point learning on the job as well. So it was my first role, and it was very, very difficult, So what I noticed, or what I saw was that, it was, I was reporting directly to the owner, right? And there are times when you feel like, you are doing a lot, you are contributing, you are doing so much, even though the pay does not, really commensurate with the work that you're doing. But you feel like, even if they're not paying you so well, they should treat you better, or, praise you for your efforts, all of those things. But those things do not, come. And so one thing I've learned, or one thing I've come to understand, from those experiences, that like we are all different sets of people, right? We're not all the same. And when you even think about it, your boss as well is going through a lot, right? So one thing that I've found that, has worked a lot is, first of all, like try and understand, even before you get the job, right? You should be able to plan on how you are going to manage your boss, because basically you have a manager, you have a boss. The person's job is to manage you, but you also have another job aside from doing your own job description. Your second job aside the job description is also to manage your boss, right? And in order to do that, you need to be able to understand this person. So what I started doing, from my first job that I got, was that I started keeping a diary. So I started writing down everything that happens, in the office. I mean, personally, all the interactions and all the things that we had, I started keeping a diary about my boss, everything. And then from taking down those, things and keeping a journal, so to say, I mean, I was able to see, when I went through all the interactions that we had, I noticed that, there was a pattern to it, right? And there were some common things that, he always talked about, or he always complains about, so to say, and, it allowed me to be able to look inward, and I was like, okay, what if I was able to fix, this one or two things that he always talks about? If I was able to work on it, will all of those things, will it stop? Will it stop, micromanaging? Will it, at least let go a bit to allow me, give me the autonomy to be able to do some things on my own? So I did that. I was able to, some issues that always come up, I was able to tackle them. And, he started to trust me. He started to, release, be free more, he handed me more responsibilities. He gave me full autonomy, and before I left, I got a better job. I moved to another company. I was beginning to do more. I was getting more freedom. I got a salary increase. I got promoted, did everything. And when I was going, it was all. So one thing is, you need to know what is important to your boss, right? You need to know what is important. Your boss is a human being, so he has, KPIs, he has metrics, he has goals. He might be the owner of the business. So if he's the owner of the business, of course, he has, to also, the business has to make money to be able to take care of him and to take care of, you as well. Because if the business doesn't do well, you don't get your salary, or and you don't pay your bills and all of that, right? So we need to know what's important to our boss. You also can copy what I did, keep a diary about your boss. So that would also be able to help you to analyze the situation, so you can see things objectively, because sometimes we can be very, very emotional about things. So for example, if somebody is talking to you or giving you feedback about a particular thing, you might feel, you might be agitated, or you might be emotional at that point. So you might not, even though the feedback is actually very, very needed, right? You might not just hear it. So if you keep a diary like the way I did, you'll be able to analyze it, after all of those emotions have calmed down, right? And another mistake I always see people doing is like they try to fix their bosses. Like, you're trying to fix your boss. You have so much, complaints about him. You're trying to fix him. But the problem is that, like, you cannot fix somebody that has, they've had the things that drive them. They have the values in their, that they work with, right? So there's no way you can fix those kind of people, but you need to also have your own values and you have your own vision, right? And you stay true to it. And then most importantly, try and put yourself in their shoes. So I find that empathy, works a lot. I know a lot of people listening, I'm sure maybe you're expecting that we're going to come here and, give you enough ammunition that you use to stone your boss, but I mean, I want to play devil's advocate in this session. So I'm giving you enough reason why you should, see your boss as a human being, right? Put yourself in your boss's shoes, right? And take a look at how you're approaching things. And most importantly, know what's important to your boss and find ways you can help your boss to achieve those things that they've set for themselves as, KPIs and goals, right? So what I've seen that happens in a number of times is, a lot of people know their weaknesses, the weaknesses of their boss. So as a person is actually, unless you are very self-aware, is actually very hard for you to know your weaknesses, right? That's why if you go to job interviews or if you've attended any job interviews, and they're interviewing someone and they ask you, what is your weakness? A lot of people do not even know what their weaknesses are, right? And it's just human, it's just being human. We tend to be able to spot other people's weaknesses, but we cannot see our own weakness, right? So your boss's weakness. And I mean, it is up to you. You have two choices, right? You can complain and talk to your other colleagues about it, talk to anybody, or you can find a way to help those people, your bosses, find a way to complement those weaknesses, right? So find a way to help your boss. So if, for example, your boss has an issue with maybe he's the type that maybe he forgets tasks, he doesn't document, or there's no process for assigning tasks. Maybe it's the type that when he just remembers something, he comes to you and say, okay, do this thing. And the next thing he remembers another thing again, and it comes again. And you are still doing that previous thing he told you to do, right? So you should find a way to, help him with that, to say, okay, how about we have a project management system? Okay, then maybe find some tools that you can use for project management. There are many free tools online. Trello is a very good tool for project management. You can suggest such a tool. You can even sign up for it. You can take those tasks that you've been assigned and, slot them in, use them to manage those projects, so that when your boss now comes to you and say, oh, do this project, you can show him that, okay, I already have this and this and this project, that is assigned. And I mean, we need to use this tool. You can add into the tool and say, okay, I mean, if you want to give me another task, you can assign it, but these are the tasks I'm already working on, right? And there's another thing that, I mean, I believe that everybody should have, which is, especially when you're getting a new job, you need to have even if the employer does not ask for it, you need to have a 90-day plan. If you can't do up to a 90-day plan, you can do a 30-day plan, right? And part of the 30-day plan, the first thing in that plan is to sit down with your boss, because this happens a lot. A lot of people do not even have conversations from the beginning, right from the day you got the employment letter. You sit down and say, now I want to understand what you expect from me. What are you expecting from me? What does success look like? What are the things that I need to do to be successful in this role? Right? You get that out of the way. You hear everything. He will tell you everything. And you can ask him, okay, so now what are your ideas? How do you think we can go about achieving some of these things that that are important to you, right? Because your boss has ideas as well. So he gives you those ideas. You can also add to those ideas as well. Then you work with it. So then periodically, so maybe on a weekly basis, you can go back to him and say, okay, so these are the things that I've worked on this way. Because I find that a lot of times, it is always communication issues that causes issues between employee and employer, or manager and underling. So it's always a communication issue. It's always an issue of not understanding what needs to be done, right? So if you know the job that needs to be done and you know what success means, like, okay, if I do this, I have successfully done that job. And this is how that job will be measured, right? And this is the timeline for that job to be done. then I don't see any problem that will occur, between you and your manager per se, except that manager is a sadist, and in that case, you need to start looking out for other options, right? I mean, we're in a time of the great resignation where a lot of people are actually moving out or resigning, so there are a lot of job opportunities. So, but that should be a last resort. It should not be the first thing on your mind. The first thing should be, how can I work with this person? How can I make this thing work, right? So also be loyal to your boss. Loyalty, very, very important. And it's also a very, very rare quality these days. A lot of people, at the slightest provocation, they've already started using the company internet to look for a new job, right? Or they start talking about their bosses at the back with other, colleagues behind their backs, right? So loyalty is very, very important. Loyalty simply means that you have that person's back. I mean, regardless of whatever happens, right? So you won't disrespect them. You will not disregard them, whatever they do, right? So try and be loyal to them. And then try also as well to listen to whatever. So listening is not about, hearing to respond, right? So listen and try and understand what is being said, right? And then see how, most times we listen and we do not now follow through with it. So see how you can take that feedback and then implement it. That's the ultimate test of listening. So the fact that you've heard that feedback and you're able to, put it into action, and I'm sure your boss will love you for it. So my approach, to dealing with a difficult boss or a tough boss or a bad boss, as people call them, is first of all, try and make things work. That's the best approach. If it doesn't now work after all of these things, right, then you can start, looking out for a new employment, But I mean, these days where things are changing, we're working in a fast-paced environment. So a lot of things are going to be expected of you, right? A lot of things are changing rapidly, especially in my industry. If you work in tech, if you're, work in digital, things are changing rapidly. So there's going to be so much expected from you, right? So that's why from the beginning, you need to understand what needs to be done. Sit down with your manager, sit down with your boss, get them to agree on your KPIs and timelines, and then, you can move together. So I think my time is done. I would be around to answer questions after the next speaker. So you can have your questions down, you can put them in the chats, and hopefully I'll answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kayode. Thank you. I think you were able to mention the fact that, everyone, even your boss, is a human being, and I like it us, they actually also have emotions. And just like you do, just like you get hurt, they do get hurt as well. Just like you're expectant about them, they are expectant about you. So one of the best way to look at this is to remain objective, and most of the time, look out from yourself when you're dealing with any emotional matter at work. And thanks for those tips. They were also mentioned on the chat session on how to handle it. All right, so I will have Christina go on with the session, and I'll be right back after that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me as well. Well done, Kayode. Thank you for all you shared, very insightful. I think that one of my major takeouts from Kayode's session is the importance of helping your bosses in the area of their weakness. And, of course, doing that with wisdom without making it, obvious that you're trying to help them, but doing it so skillfully that they eventually recognize what you're doing and actually appreciate it, because the motive is actually to help them, and it's, for the good of the team. I really like that, because I've had to practice that as well on my own journey, and I have been applauded for it by my bosses in the past, and I know how helpful it can be to actually just genuinely seek the best for your boss. And they may not notice it or realize it initially, but they will do so eventually. Thank you so much, Kayode. So thanks, Joy, for hosting this session. It's such a pleasure to be able to discuss these real life issues that professionals face in the workplace. My name is Christina. I'll just go ahead now to put up my slides so that we can have an amazing session together. I'm really excited to be here and to have an opportunity to share with everyone. Okay, so please hold on. I want to make sure that I have the perfect view for my slides for everyone to see. Awesome. All right, so I believe that we can all see my slides now. And we're good to go. All right, so I remember that I shared this the flyer for this event on my WhatsApp status, and a very, very dear friend and senior colleague messaged me and said, Christina, my boss is both difficult and different. And I could relate, because just like Kayode shared, personally, I was just thinking and realized, oh my God, it's been a decade since I started, working officially post-university. And I've worked with different types of leaders, and it's very, very interesting to just, experience leaders at different phases. Personally, there are certain things I wish I knew at the earlier stage when I started my career, which is why I hope that a lot of people who are just starting out will interact with this kind of content, because it can set you up to deal wisely with your superiors. Usually there's a knowledge gap, and the more you know, the better for you when it comes to handling superiors. I remember that I attended a particular training, I think 5 years after I started work, and when I was done with that class, I felt like crying, because I just felt like, my God, I wish I knew all this when I started out, because I had just come out of an employment situation where I felt like traumatized, by a leader I'd worked with. And from that training, I realized that, oh my God, if I knew this and this and this and this, I'll have managed this relationship better, and it will have affected me. It won't have affected me, rather, the way that it did. I'll have just used a lot of knowledge to interact with this leader, and I'll have been able to protect my own well-being as well. And it's some of those things that I seek to share, some of the things I learned that I seek to share with us today in this session. So I already mentioned that my name is Christina. I work as a learning and development professional. So I've trained for a number of organizations across industries, and these are some of them, as you can see on my slide. I really, really enjoy what I do. I started out as a finance professional, so I'm a chartered accountant. I worked in a Big Four, but I eventually just evolved into doing what I really, 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 really enjoy doing, which is learning and development. I really enjoy doing this, and it's such a joy and a pleasure to be able to serve so many amazing organizations. Also an author. I've authored a few books, and I look forward to doing so much more. One of those books speaks to corporate life. It's titled Dear Young Professional, and it's such an amazing resource where I just use the story of different corporate people to teach some lessons about the corporate world. So yeah, that's basically it about me. Let's jump right into today's session. A little disclaimer as we begin this part of the session. This session does not seek to if I may say, negates the truth that there are actually instances where you can find yourself with a toxic boss. There are instances where it's not you, it's them. Honestly, I've worked with different people myself, but what this session seeks to do is to help you before you conclude that your boss is difficult. Could it be that your boss is just different? So let's even help go through that journey together to make sure, all right, that you're not calling someone who is just different difficult. And then if indeed your boss is difficult, how can you navigate that situation to still get the highest value for yourself, for your career, and still possibly even make a mark for yourself, have a good relationship with this person for the time that you get to work with them? But I just wanted to emphasize this because, you know, someone may already feel like, oh, you don't know my boss. You people have not met my boss. Yes, there are difficult bosses, but the focus is on you. We can't change your boss. We can't work on your boss, but we can work on you. We can get you to a place where you can handle that work relationship better and still get the most of that work relationship for the time that you are there. And that's what this session seeks to achieve. Okay, so I want to share 5 things with us today. And these are things that I have practiced and have worked for me when it comes to managing leaders. These are priceless nuggets for me because some of these things I learned them the hard way, sweat and blood. But I'm so happy to share these things, you know, with everyone today. And I call them the 5 factors to prioritize when relating with superiors. All right. And the acronym we're working with today is PAVIO, PAVIO, PAVIO. So keep PAVIO in your hand and let's go about PAVIO one after the other. So P for personality. P in PAVIO is for personality. And what is this about? When relating with superiors or anyone, in fact, you need to understand their personality profile because it tells you a lot about them and their preferences and the things that will get to them or the things that they will prefer or the things they would dislike. And from the get-go, it can already influence how you relate with them. And it would almost seem as if, oh, this person gets me. I mean, your boss feeling that way about you, like, this person gets me. But yeah, you're operating from a place of knowledge. And I'll break this down a little further, right? There are many personalities. And it's also important, let me mention, that it's important for you to also understand your own personality. Because when you experience certain leaders or certain personality profiles in leaders, you would understand why it's a bit more difficult. Because some personality types can be very complementary. Some others can feel like, you know, they are working against each other in quotes, but you can actually work with every personality type. Some just blend more easier together, but some others, you know, and, you know, if you get to work with someone like yourself, it may even be much easier, but usually not everyone is like you. So understand your own personality and then understand personality profiles well enough to be able to have an idea that this seems to be my superior's personality profile. And this is what these kind of people prefer. And then you relate with them that way. And there are many personality tests out there that you can take, but I'll just make reference to DISC. I'm trained to work with DISC. And it's a personality assessment that allows you, with these 4 letters, experience 4 different kinds of people. So I'll go over this very quickly. Please go and read more about this after now. Obviously, I can't go in depth because of the time we have, but let's talk about D. D is for dominant or dominance, right? Who is a dominant personality? A dominant personality is someone who, in a short form, is very direct and seems to always be in a hurry. Like, if I were to compare this personality to a car, I would be thinking about something like a Hummer, like something big and intimidating that seems to just, you know, arrive and just take over space and take up everywhere, you know. Now, these people are very direct and in a hurry. They don't have time for stories or dilly-dallying. Go straight to the point. So when you're working with leaders like this and you're sending a report to them, make sure that your report, the first page is like an executive summary, because that's likely all that they will read. They don't have time for the other stories. So imagine that you're working with someone like this and you're always going to them with one story or the other. Like, oh, today I can't make it to work. I'm feeling a headache. Tomorrow, after a while, they don't take you seriously because they just feel like this person is not serious, right? Because they don't like stories. They just want results. Don't bother me with all the stories. Just get the work done. That's usually how these people operate, all right? They often say exactly what they think. They don't tell you, they don't filter it. So they may seem like they're being rude, you know, but they're actually just very direct. Yes, there's a borderline. Sometimes they can cross into being rude, no doubt. But the point is that they will tell you things as it is. And they can, you know, tell you their mind in a moment in a way that sounds very harsh. And in the next 5 minutes, they are laughing with you and asking you, what do you want to have for lunch? And they're even asking you, why is your face looking this way? Are you okay? Are you feeling all right? And you're wondering, excuse me, you're the one who just called. You just offended me with the way that you corrected me. But they've moved, like they've moved on. They're not holding that thing in their hearts, waiting till maybe appraisal to, you know, lash out on you. No, they're going to tell you their mind once and for all, and it's over. Okay. But they can be very direct. So when you know this, you know that when, for example, a leader like that is correcting in a very direct and strong way, it's not like they're trying to come down on you and you know, spoil your day. It's how they're wired. So you know that, okay, this person is addressing me this way because this is how they know best to address me. What I need to do is take out the learning point correction. And also I need to, if I work with someone like this, I need to know how to move on quickly. I can't be holding offense. I can't be allow one moment affect my entire day because they have moved on. So you also need to move on. And they prefer it when you know how to move on. Or you're not just staying on a matter and for the next 1 week you're wearing a gloomy face because of something that happened on Tuesday. They're looking at you and they don't understand it because for them they've moved. And this is not to excuse how the approach may feel for you. But the point is that, like Kayode was sharing, one of your jobs is to actually be able to work with your superior better. All right. So they can come across as, they may seem aggressive and all that, but like we said, that's not the intention. Right. Let me move quickly. Like I said, please read more about these people. I can't say everything about them, but I'm telling you that when you understand personality profiles like this, you'll be able to profile your leader and know how to deal better with them. The I is for influence. All right. Some leaders are this category of people are very, very people driven, influential. They are the talkers. They are very social. They light up the place. They crack jokes a lot. They like team bonding, hangout. They're always trying to get everybody to hang out. If somebody has a baby on the team, let's all go there. Somebody's having a birthday, let's all go there. And they tend to be very last minute leaders. They're the kind of people that, like Kayode was giving an example, as they're remembering things they're telling you, right? So, and they may not focus on details because they're just like in the moment people. They make decisions very quickly. They can be very spontaneous. You just come to work and say, hey guys, we're going for social meeting. You're like, oh, I didn't dress for it. They can be that kind of leader, right? But they are very social. They are very, they are very bubbly, tend to be very bubbly and all that. But you can already see one of their weaknesses staring out, that they are very, very, they can be spontaneous. They can be very, very spontaneous. And that can affect the way that you work. It can influence the way that you work. If you're someone who likes to plan, blah, 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 you may feel like, I don't like this leader because this person just always taking me by surprise with tasks and responsibility and all that. All right, let me go quickly to see for compliance. And these are people who are very, in summary, very detailed. You have some leaders who are about details, okay? They just want you to tell them everything. Don't miss out anything. Give me the full detail. If you're reporting numbers, and it's 225 naira. Don't and 225 naira, 50 kobo. Don't approximate. Just give me the exact. They are very, people under the C orientation. They are very, very detailed. They will read your report, every single thing, and they see your errors very easily. And in fact, they're reading your report. If they see an error on line 1, they may not be able to continue with that report. You see them calling you to correct the report. Like they'll keep calling you. In your mind, you're like, okay, can you just read everything and then give me the feedback at once? But they can't move on. You need to get that feedback immediately. So with them, they are very thorough. You can't do shabby work with them. You can't just, they can tell whether you put time into your work or not. And if you're someone who doesn't do detailed work, you have a problem with them. Because I'm telling you that you work with people like this, forget templates. Because something you felt like worked the last time, the next time you use that template, they're correcting it again. And you're wondering, is this person, why is this person like this? Why is this person trying to stress me? Well, with people like this, you probably go over your reports over and over again, or that presentation over and over again, because they tend to be perfectionists. So they keep trying to improve on what they've done before. They keep trying to improve. So what you brought last time, it was good. They give you feedback, you come back with it, they're looking at it and they're seeing another opportunity to improve on it. So that's one of the things about them. They are perfectionists. They take time to make decisions because they want to factor in, get all the facts about the matter before they conclude. So you may look at this my leader takes so much time to decide, but it's how they are wired. Like I said, I'm just touching a few things about these people. There's more. So please go ahead and read up about them. The S finally is a steady personality orientation. And just like, the S for steady, they tend to be very supportive and patient. I mean, when I talk about personality type, I remember people in the office who, they relate with you like mother to daughter. I don't even have bosses like that. They relate with you like, father to son. They are the ones that usually have, very interesting nicknames in the office, like Mr. Uncle B, Mr. Z. Like, they always come around with this warmth. They are very family oriented people, so to speak. They carry this, let's work like family kind of vibe. They are very, very good people managers, very good people managers. But sometimes the time with some leaders like this is that they may tend to not be as goal-oriented as maybe like a D personality. So if you find yourself as a team member, you've been suggesting something that you feel like, oh, it will help us get results. But this person doesn't seem to be taking action as quickly, and it's frustrating you. If, for example, you're someone who wants to see instant results, right? They take their time. They're always trying to carry everybody along, everybody, factor in everybody in the team to make any single decision, which sometimes like the C's will take so much time. All right, but generally they are very, very good people managers. They don't like change. That's one thing about the S orientation, steady guys. They want everything to remain as it is. So if someone is coming with a new idea, you're a Gen Z, you're coming with this bright idea, and they are struggling to adapt or adopt it, it's their personality profile at work. They don't like disruption. They don't like change. All right. So I'm just giving you a brief overview. It would do you well to go and read up and do some tests and know your personality profile. And then, and by the way, no leader is just one of these. What you find is that everyone has a bit of each of these, just at varying degrees. So usually when you run a test, you see that, oh, you're first this, then that, then that, then that. All right. So you just see, okay, to what degree, which is more obvious, which is like the highest. Where do I score the highest? Where does my boss fall into the most? Because every now and then, even that boss that is, very tough and all in quotes, some days that boss is friendly. So everybody's a mix of all, but displayed at varying degrees. When you understand the personality profile of your boss, it will do you a lot of good. All right, let me move on quickly. I had to go through this very quickly, but there's a lot here that I can't unpack, in this session, but I hope you do the work. The next thing, remember, we're doing Pavio. A is for ability. I like to say this: if every leader had one love language, it would be results. And the only way you can deliver results is if you have the ability. You are able to, by ability, I mean competence. When you're dealing with superiors, all right, you would have issues with your leaders if you do not have the competence required to deliver the results that they want to have. So if you are not a result-oriented person, time has passed when people will just hide under mundane, monotonous tasks. Now, one way or the other, there are results that we expect of you that we can measure. And when you keep falling short, you're very likely to have a difficult experience with your boss. So if you find yourself not, having friction continually, is it possible that there's a skill gap that you need to fill? If they're always complaining about, for example, the quality of your report, do you want to consider taking a communication skill training? Don't wait for the office to do that for you. It's nice if it's present, but if not, how about you go and get the skill so that you can get more competence on your job and be more positioned to deliver the results that are required. So ability is so important. You must be able to deliver results. Okay, let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is visibility. One of my mentors, Mr. Bankole Williams, will say this, that visibility is as important as ability. And I completely agree with him. Why? Because normal people are frustrated with the bosses they work with because your boss doesn't even know the things that you do. So you're in this team and you're just in the team, you're working behind the scene and all that, but somehow your boss is completely unaware of the value that you add. Somehow we expect our bosses to be the ones doing the investigation. But really and truly, in reality, your bosses have a lot on their mind. They also have a boss that they're probably trying to work with. So what is visibility in this context? Be seen, be heard. There are team meetings, for example, in a virtual work life, right? There are team meetings going on every now and then, check-in, certain discussions. You have something you can contribute, but you choose to be silent. Only God sees the heart. Your human beings, work with what they see, what they hear. They can't see your heart. So your mind, I know this thing. When it's not secondary school, you don't want to share, you don't want to raise your hand so that you don't miss it and your friends will laugh. No, this is real life. In real life, in work life, you need to be visible. So you need to take opportunities to project the way you want to be perceived. Project yourself the way you want to be perceived. If you want to be perceived as intelligent, then you have to project yourself that way. This does not mean eye service in any way. It means that when you have an opportunity to project the competence that you have, the skill that you have, the value that you add, you go ahead and do that. They're asking for volunteers in the office to get certain things done. You have what it takes to get that thing done and you can do it. But somehow you just keep taking the back seat and feeling like, well, I don't want stress. But those are your opportunities to create visibility. I remember that, when I was working in a Big Four at one point in my life. I remember that, there was some work I was doing, even outside of the workplace itself, where I was doing some community service. And that meant that, I was going out doing that. And then I came back around. I had some of my colleagues, join me to do some community work, and all that within the area during our lunch break, every now and then, not every day, right? In secondary schools. Eventually, doing that, brought some recognition for me where I won certain awards in the firm that I'm grateful for. But I'm just wondering, I could have been doing that volunteering on a low key and nobody will ever know. And I'll never get recognized for doing community service. Now, when I got my colleagues involved, it wasn't for the intention of being known or seen, but it was me just projecting the work that I do and getting them to see why they should also serve their communities. And this was an opportunity for them to do that. So with that, I was able to gain some visibility with people who will have taken me a lot of time to ever get a one-on-one interaction with, just because of the work that I was doing in community service. So this applies both, within the work and also outside of the work. In summary, take the opportunities you get to project the work that you do. Project yourself the way you want your leaders to perceive. If you want to be perceived as intelligent, project yourself that way. If you want to be perceived as, leader material, project yourself that way. And I hope that, that's really clear to someone out there. I in Pavio is for integrity as I begin a round of integrity. Look, winning your boss's trust is so important. And it comes with being a person of integrity. I've worked with a leader that, some of the personal things I do, aside from my job, I do them with the knowledge of my boss. And he's one of the most supportive people. I remember that when I was going to write my first book, my boss was the person who, in fact, insisted that the book must be done, paid the editor, paid the graphic person, my first editor and the graphic person in advance, and told them to be on my neck until I produce my book. The book had nothing to do with my employment, but it's more like, I see that this person has so much to give, and this person has proven herself to be a person of integrity. Integrity being, if I'm up to something, I'll say, hey, I have this other thing that I need to go and get done. But you know what? Before that, this is my plan to make sure that my work is done and nothing suffers while I go ahead to do this other thing that I do. I try to be as transparent as possible. Of course, you must have built leverage with your boss. By leverage, I mean steady, consistent commitment to work that they can vouch for. You are proving yourself over time to be a person of value, so that when you even say, hey, I have this other thing I'm doing, they know that, hey, I can't even afford to lose you. So we have to find a way for you to be able to do this and still do this. Because I will support you because I want to keep you. So being a person of integrity, not being that, you say that, especially this period of working from home, your boss is calling you and they're hearing background sound of the market. They're hearing, hey, Loni, I'll pay 1,000. And they're wondering, excuse me, this person is supposed to be at work, at home, working. It begins to, puncture their ability to trust you. They begin to doubt you. So integrity is so important. And your boss should know that if Christina says it is this, I can trust her. Don't be manipulative with your bosses. Don't be pretentious. All right. You can, just the way you also want to relate to people who are genuine, your bosses also want to relate to people that are genuine. They want to know that you have their best interests at heart and you try to be truthful. Sometimes, being truthful may mean that, you have to own up to mistakes. You made a mistake on the job. You have to own up and say, I'm sorry. Hopefully you're someone who is competent enough. So okay, truly, this was a mistake and we pardon you, as opposed to covering it up until one day everything blows up. So being a person of integrity when dealing with superiors and generally when dealing with human beings is so important. Finally, all for objectivity. I'll round up with this point. Being objective is key. You know how in school days, for example, in university days, you've not had some lecturers take you on a class yet, but you've heard a lot of things about them. Like, the lecturer is this, is that, is that. So you already form an opinion. And then when you get to the class, even when the lecturer is probably not all of that, you're already viewing them through that lens. I always say that be very, very objective with your leaders. Give your leaders the benefit of the doubt. You may have heard a lot of things about them from other people. And I've had experiences where I've heard negative things about a leader. And I say, you know what? I'll give myself an opportunity to experience this person for who they are. and even focus as much as possible on their strengths rather than their weakness. So what am I saying? Deal with your leaders objectively. Be objective. Don't be relating with your leader based on something that you were told about them. To you, you haven't experienced it with them, but somehow you feel like, oh, I'm protecting myself. Before that day ever comes, let me give this person, or let me stress them, let me make their life difficult, so you know that they can't mess with me. Sometimes those things are not necessary, right? So be objective. Put aside biases. All right, be objective. Don't say, oh, this person is not even older than me by more than 1 year, and she's there calling the shots. So you're unnecessarily unhappy with your leader, or let me use the term we use, beefing your leader, just because the person is your age mate, but the person is your boss. So you have to take away biases. Oh, the person is not my tribe, is not this, is not that. Take away all those biases and give people a chance, all right, to be themselves, to allow yourself to experience people for who they are. Don't relate to people based on, conclusions that you reached without even experiencing them. Be objective with your leaders. Be objective with your leaders. All right, as I wrap up, when I see this image, a word comes to mind, and it's resilience. And I like to add emotional at the back of that resilience. When you work with a leader that is difficult, all right, you will need to you will need to display a lot of resilience. Emotional resilience is something that you should read up about, you should study, you should know about, because it's something that you will need to practice on your journey as a professional. You would have to display resilience because, like I said, some bosses are different. It's just like how men and women are different. Doesn't mean that either of us is bad for each other, or neither of us is better than the other, but we are different. And if we don't recognize our differences and relate to ourselves with knowledge, there will be a breakdown. All right. So with all these things, the next thing for you to do is just have emotional resilience in mind that I will bloom wherever I find myself, even if I may be counting down, like, oh, I don't want to work with this person for too long. If it's 2 months, I'm going to be here. I'm going to thrive. Regardless, I'm going to thrive. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we'll proceed to our Q&A session. I'll pause for now so that we can take questions in the interest of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christina. That was such a wonderful session. I was just nodding my head all through, like, yeah. I mean, you really addressed a very, very, very important point to raise there. And, I like the PAVIO acronym. It's so precise and it covers almost everything that is necessary to address. This it's online, you can read about it. Like you said, nobody has just one part. There's a lot of other parts in it, but you will find one that is predominant in your boss, and that will help you to know how to interact with them. What's important to add is the visibility part. So I like it when you're doing great work, but you must be visible as well. But to turn the coin, please make sure as you're trying to be visible that you have the right abilities. So because one of the things that would really count on the beauty of being visible, of being a visible achiever, is if you go blowing or trying to show what you don't have the bedrock for. So as you're trying to improve yourself, you have things to give. You should be proud to show what you have, and of course, be human enough to know that you're not perfect. So even if you make mistakes, you're making it forward. But at the same time, make sure that you're not the type that raises your hand, pushes your hands up to say trash. It's not the easiest way to go down the line professionally. So please, make sure you match your ability with your visibility. All right. Thank you so much. We'll go to the Q&A sessions now, and we have some questions that come here. I don't know if Kayode, are you still there? I would like to have you also join us in this panel. So I'm going to try and make sure that we can all be seen at the same time. So let's have this session go on. I would like us to pick the questions that we would like to address. And I have some here. It says, yes, so what if my boss is really a narcissist? So the person says, what if my boss is really and only uses force as a means to an end, cares nothing about being human? When do I know how do I know when to quit? You get the question. So this person has to know, when do I know it is time to stop? So let's say my boss is just a difficult person. So I'm glad I'm not the one having this conversation, because most of the time it looks like, oh, I'm always pro, do your best. There's really no difficult person out there. People are just different. You just need to address and know who this person is, and then be able to maximize your time wherever you are, because it's your life, you're working. I mean, you go to a place, you spend 2 years, you can't redeem back those 2 years. If you're miserable those 2 years, I mean, it's not worth it. So if you're going to be somewhere, even if you're looking out, make sure that you maximize that time and you're enjoying yourself while you're at it, So hearing from others is so beautiful, because I didn't get the slides. So I'm so happy, for yourself, right? We didn't even have a recall. So I'm happy that, you can speak from other ends, and you guys have been able to achieve things from your ends, in your careers and as leaders as well. So please let's answer this question. I think I will throw this to Kayode. So how do I know when to quit? How do I know if it is over? If my boss is just seeing us as tools and not humans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good question. And I think it comes with a lot of introspection. Like, you need to also ask yourself a number of questions, right? So about when to quit, how to know when to quit or when to move on. I think it has to do a lot about, you and what plans you have for yourself, right? Because, I mean, it will not make sense if you decide that, okay, my boss is a narcissist, I want to go into his office and go and yell at him and say, I think you're a narcissist, I think you are this, you're that, I think this is crazy, all the ideas you've given us, and then pouring out your mind like that, it's actually very, very immature and, unsophisticated, right? So, it boils down on you yourself, like, okay, so what next do you want to do? What do you want to do about that, right? So do you even is there a plan B? So if you decide today to leave the work and move on, what are the other steps? Do you have an up-to-date CV? Do you have job prospects? Do you have a plan to start your business? What is the next thing you want to do? So all of these things will determine if you should or should not, it will give you like the best time. Because I believe that for every job I get, for example, from the day I get that offer letter, right? I already have a time frame. I've given myself like, okay, this is the period I want to work here. So if I say I'm going to be here for a year, so I'm not going to wait until it is maybe 1 month and maybe or some few weeks before I start searching for a new job, or I already have, start thinking of the next plan or where to work next. In like 6 months before the time I've set for myself, I've already started, networking with HRs. I've started sending my CV out there. I've started thinking about, okay, what's the next? Where do I want to go next? Which industry do I want to work with? Or which companies do I see myself working with? Which roles do I see myself playing? So, for me personally, I've done a lot of things. There was a time where I just decided that, okay, I don't want to work for anybody again. And that was like 2019, 2020. And I said, okay, let me try this entrepreneurship thing for a year and see where it leads me. And I did that for 2019 to 2020, And after 2020, I saw that, okay, I didn't really do well in this entrepreneurship thing. Let me dust my CV and get a job, And I did that before, 2020 ended, before the time frame that I set for myself. And, and as soon as I sent out my CV, did all of that, within a month or two, I got another job and, I started 9 to 5 again. So I think everyone should have that mindset, right? So no matter how great the work environment is, right, you should always have an exit plan, So even as an entrepreneur, if you have a business and you have investors, they will ask you, what's the exit plan? How do you plan to exit this business? How do we make money at the end of the day? Because every investor wants to know how they are going to make their money back, right? So we need to also have that mindset as employees, right? So what's the exit plan? How do you plan to leave? So that at the end of the day, you're not caught unawares. So I always have an exit plan, right? So if I now get to that point where, okay, I'm up to my neck and it's like this job wants to take my life. So I just activate that exit plan, right? So you know when to exit. You should always have that exit plan before you even, as soon as you get your offer letter, think about it. Where do I want, how long do I want to stay here? And then that would even allow you to be able to survive or thrive. Because I mean, whatever is being thrown at you, you know that, okay, I already have a timeline here, right? So as soon as I'm there, I can always move on. And that way you can even learn to manage people, manage your boss, cope, and then do as much as you can within that time frame. Because believe it or not, I mean, whenever you decide to leave, people will remember how you made them feel, what contributions you made, than how long you stayed or all of that. Even that your boss will feel it if you made if you made a positive impact or you made a positive contribution. Right, you will always remember that, oh, there was this kind of guy, when he was here, this and this and this. And they will even compare you to the next person that comes into that place. So it shouldn't be about your boss or the work environment. It should be about you. As Christina said, and which I really I would want to get your slides as well, Christina, at the end of this as well. I mean, very lovely slide. So I believe that's the answer to that question. So always have a plan. And don't wait until, it's like last minute and you don't have a choice before, you decide on when to move.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for that. Like you mentioned, when you get into a job, it's just right that what to achieve after you've had a dialogue with your employer, what they would like to achieve. You also have a time plan on how long it might take you to achieve. And if you're going a serious goal, that's problems. So it's always going to be the end is always going to be put forward at every time, right? Same time, you want to always be able to have X marks on be first assessor. So one of the things that if you have to be your own judge and you're judging yourself, your boss has to judge you. Most likely have very little to discuss it negatively. Why? Because you already strong, you're already putting a very high demand on you, and that will make it easy for you to already pass the mark with your employer. See, you always push the boundaries by yourself. I think it's one of the easiest way to win the war on the attack side. Yeah, that's why it's attacking is the best of defense, right? So you already put yourself on the tight spot. You're already trying to get things better. So set that plan for yourself. When parents say that you have a negative plan when you're coming, it's not so that you go or drain of energy or looking for the fastest way to go at fastest provocation. No. It's for you to be tenacious, you want to know, this is what I want to achieve with this job. I'm going to achieve it. I might think whatever it is, but in this particular time, I'm going to achieve it. If you have, it's a bit of self-satisfaction you get, and you would know when it's time for you to say, okay, I know that you've been a very terrible boss, so to say, as a person, because people bring themselves to work. If somebody is self-centered as a person, doesn't really care about people, that's how they're going to work. That is also how they're going to do with it as their subordinates. So it's true that, but you have to be objective. That's where the unpacking that Christina mentioned. You have to be objective as well. Always look out, from the lenses of what you heard about them or who they even might have portrayed to be. Look at your work, be objective about your work, what you want to achieve, how you're going to achieve it. Keep looking at the company, keep looking at your role, and you'll be able to push forward. All right. So I think I'm going to go to the next question. It's how do you handle this situation when your boss already had a preconceived notion about you? Oh, wow, this happens in the front too. I mean, so, people talk and say, so somebody even, not really engaged you. So let's say the person is an entrepreneur and employed you to work, and the person has this idea about maybe somebody said this or that, and they've not really had about you, and have a preconceived notion, and possibly that notion is good, because that is why this person is asking this question. How do you handle the situation? Please, Christina, help us handle that.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. I was able to pick that, even though the line is breaking a bit from your end, but maybe you could check that, before you come back up. But I think I got the question about preconceived notions. Well, the truth is that, trust is built over time. You would have to give yourself, that task of consistently proving yourself to be different from what you're perceived as. So basically help that leader see you differently, because for whatever reason, they have that preconceived notion, right? You would make an effort to, portray yourself as who you are and correct that preconceived notion that they have, but that would take consistency. They will not be just based on 1 or 2 or 3 days that they may be able to change their perception about you. It may take some time. So you may want to give them some time and intentionally, of course, because what they have is a false impression of you, it will not require you probably trying to act out as a person to prove a point. No, you just be yourself every day as much as possible. But already that this person has a preconceived notion. So even if there is friction, you're mentally saying, okay, I know where this is coming from, but I'm going to give this person time. But if that situation lingers for too long, and if, for any reason it gets unbearable for you, you may want to then consider your other options, because obviously you can't force someone to think of you in a certain way if they decided to hold on to another opinion of you that does not serve you well. So give it time. That would be my suggestion to someone in this situation. Give it time. Don't just, because some people will go and say, oh, this is not how I am, and try to use their words to correct the person's impression. But usually words will not do it. It will take your actions, and it will take consistent actions over some period of time for the person to actually experience you to an extent that they know that, okay, maybe I'm not correct about this person, and then possibly change that impression. But if they are insistent on holding on to their impression of you, and if something that doesn't serve you well, is bringing you any harm, or just doesn't serve for your own well-being and optimal productivity as well, you may want to bring in other people to intervene, in the situation. Maybe someone that boss also respects, to have a conversation with them about, hey, maybe like someone on their level as well. Say, oh, this person, you might want to give this person a chance and stuff. And if you explore that as well, but this boss is still insistent on, not moving past that, and that you have given yourself some time, or giving them some time, and you've proven yourself consistently, you may want to consider your other options. That's my thoughts on the matter, honestly.
Yes, really, very well spoken. So you really can't force anyone to think of you in a way, but make sure that you are also not reacting to that person in such a way you might unconsciously confirm such prenomination. So try to just be yourself, do your work, and have it at the front of your mind when you get some backlash that is coming from mindset. You have more work to do to change that mindset if you don't have any other option than to change it. If you have any other option, you might just take your way out if it's unbearable for you. Or you might, if you feel like the person is someone you can approach, you could, maybe a time you have an hangout, a company event, you could warm up to them and just ask them that, I think maybe you think I'm this kind of person. I'm sorry if I ever made you that way, but I don't think I'm such a person. or in a time when you have such opportunity. If not, if you use the upper level approach and tell it to someone, if you feel like they won't feel like you're reporting them, because that could be worse. So you would know. But most importantly, just be yourself. People are intelligent. They would catch up. Oh, this girl, I thought she was like that. She was not. Just the same way you would catch up with the boss. You might have heard about that. This and that, and you feel like, this person is not like that. So it will change time. So the next question says, what can be done in an event where you have a boss who is a nice person, but absolutely difficult when it comes to work, to the extent that team members are demotivated and looking for other opportunities? Do you let such a person know that they are? So that's the question. I think I'll have Kayode address that quickly.
Okay. So I guess it has to do with emotional intelligence, right? And which is like a soft skill now that is recommended. I think I can't remember the platform, but they talked about it being one of the most important skill going forward and in the future, right? Being emotionally intelligent. And so emotional intelligence, being emotionally intelligent, you should be able to, find ways to, and especially when you said, so your question, the way you posed it, it seems like you have a relationship with this person outside of work. And it's only when it's within the confines of the working environment that this person becomes difficult to work with. So, outside of that work, that working outside work relationship is actually the best time or the best place where you can table this kind of matters, and then let that person know that, oh, we have a good relationship outside work. We talk well, we're happy. It would also be a good, it will also be good if we have this kind of relationship, at work as well. And you can point out, different areas. But first of all, you need to also have that self-awareness. You need to be able to, highlight those, different areas of improvement. Because like I said, everyone, we have that blind side of our weaknesses, right? So if you know Johari's window, if you know about that principle, it just says that, there are things about us that we don't know, but others know. And there's some things about us that we know, but others do not know, right? So there are things that your boss knows about himself that you do not know. And there are some things that he doesn't know about himself that you know, right? So it's now to find avenues like that, like the outside of work avenues where you can table those discussions. So if he's the type of person that you guys hang out together, maybe after work, maybe you have a games area where you play games and all of that, or maybe it can be TGIF. There are things that you can bring up like that. So I remember in the organization I worked with, and even in my present organization, during birthdays, we always have, they'll tell each person, oh, say something about this person, or, they'll call different people that work closely with the person, right? So as you are cutting your cake, or before you cut the cake, oh, give us one or two things about this person. So it's within that period, if there are things that you wanted to say to that person that you did not have, but because of, the lightheartedness of that particular occasion, you can be able to pass those kind of messages across to say, oh, wow, my boss is a lovely person, or he's wonderful, but I think that he can do this and do that and do that. So it's those kind of avenues that you find to pass those messages across, right? But I think it's very, very important that the person knows. But it's now how you convey the message that is also very, very important. So it needs to be conveyed with wisdom, right? You need to be emotionally intelligent. You need to find the right atmosphere, the right conditions, so it's not like you just blot it out and say, oh, my boss, you know you don't have emotional intelligence, or you're always very blah blah blah. Something like that will get you fired or queried, or so you have to be emotionally intelligent, but you should communicate those flaws, let them see it, because it will also be good. Imagine if somebody were able to, lovingly communicate, your flaws to you. The person is not saying it out of malice, but the person is actually telling you, because I'm sure we all appreciate, when somebody tells us, oh, you're doing well, but you can do better in these areas. We all love it. It now depends on how that message is passed across. So your boss is also a human being. So he would love it if you can also give him that feedback to say, okay, I feel like we can do better in this and this and this areas. And once you pass that information, it actually makes the working relationship better, so, and I believe that nobody is beyond feedback. Everybody loves to, get feedback, but it's now how we bring those feedback or how we bring those topics up that, matters a lot. So, I mean, this person asking this question, I believe you should discuss with your boss. It shouldn't be immediate. I think the knee-jerk reaction, that a lot of people have is if it's not working for me, this person is not, if he's a terrible boss or the person is bad, immediately I should start looking for another job, which I don't think, is the right way to work, because everybody at one point or the other, no matter how nice they are going to offend you, or they will, in quotes, step on your toes, or they'll do something you don't like. We can't always be nice all the time, right? So is it every time that thing happens that you now start looking for a new job? I don't think so. So I feel, have that conversation with your boss. Be emotionally intelligent, find the right moments to discuss it. And I think things will be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Find the right approach to it when you're having the conversation is so important. So I think I'll just take one more question for time. And that would be, the person said, what's the correlation between temperament type and the job you take up? So the person wants to know if there is a correlation between the temperament I have and the kind of job I should do. Thank you, Christian.
Okay. So I'll just jump on that. Yeah, so everyone can do every kind of job, but some personality types will enjoy some types of jobs more than others. So this is not to say that you're limited because of your personality profile. But I give you an example. People who enjoy fast-paced environments, who, and I mean, there are certain jobs that are very fast-paced, very travel, go around a lot and everything. Some personality profiles who like, to just have a very triangular life. That's like your typical green, someone who does not need a steady personality is like that. You can predict them. It's from work to the house, to church, back to work, unlike someone of personality that is more spontaneous. So for someone like that, they may not enjoy a job that involves a lot of traveling because they just like to have that predictable, movement and lifestyle. It doesn't mean they can't do that job, but somebody who is another personality profile, like that's your social guy, the influential guy, he likes to travel, he enjoys, very social. So someone like that would enjoy that kind of job that involves traveling a lot more. So it's often said that, there's some personality profile that makes better teachers. There are very different schools of thought around it. But my point is, if you understand your personality profile, even if you find yourself in an environment that, or in a kind of job that doesn't seem like, is best suited for you in quotes, because you understand why it's that way, you can manage yourself better to still have an optimal result. So you know that, I'm feeling this way about this job because of these traits that I have. It's not the job, right? It's this trait that I have, but this is the space I want to work. This is what I want to do, so that I can adjust myself. I can consciously every day, draw from the other traits that I have that are more accommodative of this kind of job and show up for it. So it's definitely something. It's nice to consider your personality type in choosing your job, so that you're probably, a better fit and more able to enjoy what you do. But if you find that that's not happening for you, doesn't mean it's over. You can, like I said, everybody has all 4 traits present. Some are just more than the others. So you can draw from somewhere. Like a rubber band, you can stretch, all right, to accommodate the demands of your work. But like a band, when when it doesn't have to stretch, it's back to its normal size. So that's what I would say to that.
Thank you. Yes, so true. Jobs do have some traits that it's best fit. And even if you see job descriptions, sometimes they go all the way to tell you the character that is best fit for the role. They try some very specific jobs because they know that it will be a square peg in a round hole if you take up this job and you don't have or you have opposite attributes. So it's good for you to really do a profile on the roles that you're doing or the career you're picking and know if it's something that really suits your personality. If it doesn't, if it's so far away, you might want to reconsider. Or if it's just that you need to build something, because there is no perfect square anywhere. There are some roles that you pick up and you will have like maybe 70% alignment, and there are some things that role requires in such a person that you don't have. Then you know those are your competency gaps, those are your strategic gaps. You know you need to double up, you need to be more intentional in those parts. So yes, that's how to go on this correlation. So I think that's about the questions. I will be doing the wrap up now, and I really want to say thank you, Christina and Kayode. Just before we wrap up, I have some few things I would want to share about this particular topic, and it's something I personally had learned. Let's say from a life study. From my own life, I learned this. I don't know if you can see my screen. So I want to share with you this model when you're dealing with life, because your work is part of your life, and we're going to be working with someone that is not entirely agreeable, and you're working with space that is not so easy. Let me put this on the execution mode. So you see, this principle, of course, I got it from the Bible. I'm Christian, and I was from studying this particular person, and I realized that when you're working in a place, and first of all, as a person, you need to focus. You need to focus. You need to focus on your job, focus on the things that you need to do. A lot of essays, a lot of things that are not so necessary for you. You want to cut them out. Sometimes it's not always helpful to be your office next to the gist table in the office. You know, it's not going to help you. So you need to focus on why you're doing a job, what you want to achieve. That will also help you to have conversations with your boss on how to achieve it. You need to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur means that you're looking for how to get resources, how to get results, even when you have minimal resources. So it's not all the time you expect to be spoon-fed. I always like when people do a bit of, try to be an entrepreneur before they pick up a job. I like to see it on CV that you try to do a business. So you would get to appreciate your boss that has a company that's been running for 20 years, 60 years, much better. Because if you try to do it and you see that it's not so easy, sometimes you understand their stress and some mental demand they have, and to help you also to be entrepreneurial. So you're working, but you're thinking like a business owner. You're thinking, you know how to manage that entrepreneurial gap, and even with whatever you have, you know how to still work with it. You have to be result oriented. Focus on what you want to achieve, and pat yourself in the back when you achieve them. Make your results what you make you happy. Then one is innovate. Of course, that is it's cycles. It's lives together, but you have to innovate. That's how you want to be entrepreneur without being innovative. So anyway, so you have to innovate. So if you're working in a place and it looks difficult and you keep providing solutions, you keep providing ideas. I tell you, there's no boss that would be angry with you or that wants you off the ship. Because you're always bringing about something. It doesn't mean to be so big, but at every little point you're innovating, you're thinking of how to, make something better. You would always cross the borderline to the good parts of your boss. So let's go about ownership mindset. Yes, ownership mindset. You treat whatever is given to you like it's your own. I see if you can do this 6 models, I'm telling you, you would never ever really be in that space where you have a difficult boss. Rather, you set yourself up for an upward movement in your career and even your own personal life. So have an ownership mindset. Whatever it is you're working, once you even understand, start working in a place, they don't even understand the business objective. They don't even understand. I'm meant to respond to customers when they call and just tell them this. They don't understand the position of the business, how we want to treat the customers, and why we want to treat them like that. So all of those things, you want to have ownership mindset. You want to understand, what you're doing and how it interacts with the business entirely. And then the last is breaking point. So this breaking point means, yes, we know that you will try your best, but sometimes you meet some people that are just backbreaking. You need to know when enough is enough. I think I already mentioned that you already have your own plans. So if you're able to meet that plans, you know that, okay, now I'm over, I'm done, I can't continue here, I've achieved the things I want to do, and I think it's just time for me to go out, start to join another business, or to start a thing, or to move on, in career and all of that. So I think that's just what I wanted to share, and okay, so I like to see how this, this. Okay, so you didn't see my screen. Let me see the chat session. Okay, oh. All right, I think we already exceeded our time. I would share it again. So you can quickly look through if you need to. I spoke about just this particular place. I mentioned focus. I mentioned that to be entrepreneurial. I mentioned that, you should be result oriented. I mentioned that you should innovate. You should have ownership mindsets, and you should know when enough is enough. This model is something that I've applied in my life and has always been useful. I might not be able to see it in any books because I noted them down over and over the years. But I've seen it work. I've observed people, that have got up and above in their career, even in their businesses, and this is it. So I hope this will be able to help you. So once again, thank you so much, Kayode, for coming to the call. Thank you, Christina. I'm so happy to have you both on the call. You really did justice to this topic. And I think the audience are also great. Glad that you have here, and the chat is on YouTube. They're glad to have you on the call. So thank you so much, and have a great time. See you again, maybe some more time in the future. We're so glad that I'm sure I really would have loved to get feedbacks, right? About what we take homes and all of that, but we will not be able to do that on this call. So if you really don't mind, you can share it with me personally, and I would share it with the facilitators. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great life and work life ahead. Okay, bye.